All right, here's video 4. Here's my dog for you guys. This Bentley. He is going to be 9 in May. We took him in for a family member who couldn't care for him. He does only have the one eye. A cat scratched him and he had to have it removed. He is a special little guy. And we'll see if he barks since I have him out here. But what we're gonna do is go over, this is for week 4. I'm gonna talk a little bit more in depth about persuasive speaking. Go over quiz 4, which is gonna be on chapters 13, 15, and 16. There are links here for you to submit your informative speech outline and your informative speech podcast. There is a link for podcast help, and there's also a link for persuasive speech topics. All right, let's get to it. So, go over chapter 13 first. Chapter 13 is on visual aids. There will be questions on the quiz regarding this, but like I talked about, we're not really able to do visual aids for our persuasive speech, just because I don't think there's enough time for me to prepare, come up with a way for you guys to be able to submit that. So I think it's just best that we make it a little simpler, but I still want you to learn it. Chapter 15 is speaking to persuade, and talks about the importance of persuasion, ethics and persuasion, psychology of persuasion. So really just giving you all the details as far as strategies that you can use based on research for how to be more persuasive and use a more persuasive style of speaking. Also talks about persuasive speeches on questions of fact, as far as what are questions of fact, how to organize speeches, persuasive speeches in different ways, right? The best way that I can tell you to organize a persuasive speech is problem, cause, solution. Point 1, problem. Point 2, cause. Point 3, solution. So with that, let's say that we're doing our persuasive speech on the infamous, my infamous speech topic of to persuade my audience that the federal government should fund embryonic stem cell research. We would have the first point be the problem, which is lack of funding. And you could also incorporate in the problem the diseases in which embryonic stem cell research could help solve. So the solution is, problem, cause is lack of funding. This is where you bring up the opposition. You talk about that, why people disagree with this, why they don't want embryonic stem cell research. So you bring up the opposition, and what do we do with the opposition? We refute it, and you'll see that in the other file that would be helpful if you have open during this video, is the persuasive speech outline, stem cell research. It's perfect. It's a stem cell research one. Great, I thought I had the GMO one on here for you. So, for example, let's see. So we would want to make sure that we're talking about the opposition in this point too. Sometimes the opposition can come up in the third point as well. It just really depends on the flow of your speech because you want it to be natural. But if you're going with the easiest, which is problem, cause, solution, you're going to bring up that opposition in that second body point. And you want to make sure you refute it with evidence. You need to cite at least one source from the opposition. So this is where I do encourage you to use something that is maybe general consumption. So it could totally be, for example, maybe Fox News or CNN or something that might be a little less credible to show this is what the general population tends to think when it comes to the opposition of embryonic stem cell research or whatever your topic is. And this is why that is wrong. And then we cite all of our reasons why that is wrong. And when I say cite, I mean it's not just your opinion. Now you use that opposition to show why people should agree with you, why you are persuading them, right? So we cite something from the opposition, and then we cite our reasons why that opposition is incorrect and why our specific purpose is superior. Okay. So there are other ways to organize a persuasive speech. You won't necessarily be asked about them. And I did post a national persuasive speech, so you can kind of listen to that speech talk that I was discussing last video. Something that they also talk about in here is persuasive speeches that discuss policy. So again, with this problem, cause, solution format, and I'm saying that the federal government should fund embryonic stem cell research, I'm presenting the solution right there in my specific purpose. I'm saying what the problem is and how we can fix it. And sometimes by giving people a specific thing that they can grab onto is really persuasive, but also it's necessary in this speech, right? So if we go to your rubric pack and go to the persuasive speech, you will see that you need to have under content, support, refutation, reasoning. So refutation, just to read it to you here, and you can read this on your own as well, to score in the advanced category, it says presents opposing side in a creative, clear, and concise way, is able to refute claims to reinforce the thesis. So then reasoning, call to action, and impact. And this is like what I was talking about, that problem, cause, solution. So what is the solution? What can your audience do? Sometimes it's signing a petition. Sometimes it's calling a local, state or local representative, writing a letter to your congressperson, voting a particular way. For the embryonic stem cell research one, I remember that there was a specific bill that was actually had not been passed. So the student was able to just take that bill and say, I think this still deserves to be reviewed and potentially passed so that the federal government does fund this. Giving people some sort of solution of, okay, now you just persuaded me this should happen, but what can I do? What should I do to make this happen moving forward? So the refutation and the call to action are the two main differences between the informative speech and a persuasive speech. In both an informative and persuasive, you're giving a ton of information to your audience. So first of all, if you're giving your persuasive speech on embryonic stem cell research, half your audience isn't going to know what that is. So you're probably going to spend that first body point describing to your audience what your topic is, what that means. And really flesh out, and this is a longer speech, so you're fleshing out all these different areas, the controversies surrounding it, and how we can move past those controversies, and how your audience should move past those, and how they should think. That's what we're doing with persuasive speaking. We're trying to change beliefs, attitudes, behaviors. We're trying to get people to do things. So say with all this stuff that's going on, to persuade my audience to use social distancing practices, really going into detail about why it's so important. Maybe using that example of the curve that everyone keeps showing, of how we can flatten the curve by staying home and different things like that. All of these things are really important. Okay, let me pull up one other thing here. Chapter 16. Let me pull this up, and then I'll go over the rest of this chapter 16 for your quiz. But just to give a little bit more detail and make sure I hit everything that I would hit in class, because this is still so weird to me. I'll see if I can upload this. It's a PowerPoint that I normally use in class to go over persuasive speaking, and I think it would be helpful, so I'll try to include it in the module. So talking about creating an argument, I use a quote from Desmond Tutu: "Don't raise your voice, improve your argument." And I think this is something that for me makes me think a lot about our political climate and different political puppets, as I would like to call them, and how they use their voices in arguments. And you've probably noticed from discussion board questions that I kind of want to pose this question of how can we as a community, as a public speaking class, polish and use our voices in a powerful way in our community. And that's something that obviously I'm really passionate about, is community service, and I am a public servant, and how I can use my voice, that I'm comfortable with speaking in front of people, I'm comfortable with saying things that might be hard to say. How can I use that for the betterment of our community as a whole? And that's something that I want everyone to think about when it comes to public speaking, is that we're really privileged to be able to go to college, to be able to feel comfortable going out and speaking, to feel comfortable having hot political debates with our friends and families, and in some cases, political government. All these things are things that we need to think about when we think about persuasive speaking. And that ties back into the ethics of public speaking as well. Okay. So just to make sure I hit everything, your specific purpose is going to be that to persuade my audience of what? You need to have 3 main points. You need to take a stance on the topic. We're not just presenting it like you were with the informative speech, right? We're taking a firm stance. It needs to be controversial, and I highly recommend you taking the problem, cause, solution standpoint. It's the most easy to format. I'll make sure that you present a persuasive speech. I have 2 examples here. So which is more persuasive? To persuade my audience that embryonic stem cell research is not abortion, or to persuade my audience that the federal government should fund embryonic stem cell research? Obviously, I've already gone over this, so it's the second one. Here's another one: to persuade my audience that smoking is bad, or to persuade my audience that tobacco products should be classified as a Schedule I drug. So obviously it's extreme, but it's providing that solution. Problem and solution are in that specific purpose. It makes it really clear to the audience what you're going to talk about and what we can do. What does this mean for us? So in the outline, we have our attention getter, our thesis, established credibility, preview points, all the same. We have our 3 body points. You should have a minimum of 6 oral citations. So you orally say, according to so-and-so, they stated this, right? And then You need to have at least one source citation where you refute the opposition, like I already said. You have transitions, and in your conclusion, we restate the points, restate the thesis, give a reason to remember, and this is usually where that call to action can take place. It can also be in your third body paragraph if you want, but giving us that reason to remember of what you can do. Now that you have learned about the importance of embryonic stem cell research and why the federal government should fund it, now you can vote. You can use this knowledge to vote this into being. Okay. So audience considerations, some questions to consider are: how much does your audience know about the topic? How much do they care? Would they see it as significant? Do they understand the true nature of the problem? If your answer to that is, well, it's kind of specific to like me and my personal knowledge of video games, then you might not want to use that topic, or you're gonna have to spend a significant amount of time in your first body paragraph really presenting that problem. And then also, if you are suggesting some sort of policy change, make sure that you allow significant time to explain what that policy is and how it would be reflected within our own community, right? So that's one of the questions. How much do they know about the proposed plan? Most likely, if you cite a bill, they're not gonna know anything about it. So you're gonna have to explain it to them. So knowing your audience, their values, beliefs, worldview, behavior. So values, what is good or best; beliefs, what is true; worldview, what is real; behavior, what is done. And I already said, what is persuasion? It's an attempt to change an attitude, value, belief, or behavior. In this PowerPoint, I have a picture, and it's a cartoon. They say, "I'm fine, I want you to tell me how to change everyone else." And that's what we're doing essentially with public speaking, and with persuasive speaking specifically. So we're trying to change someone's belief, behaviors, opinions. So we have ethos, logos, and pathos. I'm sure some of you might already know about these. So ethos is our credibility, that trustworthiness, our reputation, our tone and style as a speaker, why the audience should trust and listen to us. If your audience doesn't see you as credible, they're probably not going to be persuaded by you. Logos is logic. It's the reasoning, your argument, your argumentation, your ability to argue, as well as your oral citations, those facts, figures, case studies, things that you use as your sources in your speech, not just pulling facts and thoughts out of your brain. And lastly, pathos, which is emotional and imaginative impact that you have. So maybe that's storytelling, that's that narrative that you use at the beginning and end to really capture your audience's attention with stories to make this real to them. Maybe they don't have diabetes, maybe they don't know anyone with diabetes, but when you tell them a story about the fact that it could be different if we funded this specific type of research, that means more to them. Okay. In here I give some examples of day-to-day persuasion, such as emotional appeal and fear tactics. I'll post those links. They're videos to some commercials. My dog wants to go outside. Activity. All right, I wish we could do activities, and I just cannot come up with a good way to do it unless we were going to have Zoom meetings, and we're not gonna go there. But if you want to give yourself an activity to do, maybe with a family member, maybe you're taking this class with a friend, my advice is to have your speech topic and write on a piece of paper your specific purpose and your 3 main points, and have whoever you're able to work with kind of play devil's advocate, play the opposition. So show the speaker what people could say. Sometimes when you think of a topic like, let's say smoking's bad for you, and you're gonna go with something of that nature, right? It might be hard for you to think like, well, everyone knows smoking's bad for you, so What is there really to refute, right? So working with another person to kind of flesh out that opposition and see what direction you want to take your research can be really helpful. The other thing that you can do is similar thing. You write your specific purpose, write your 3 main points, and what's your call to action? What are some other examples of call to action that could work for your topic? And that's something you can flesh out with a peer as well. And then I also have listed the persuasive speech example. Okay. So chapter 16, they talk about methods of persuasion, building credibility, using evidence, reasoning, appealing to emotions, and they give a sample speech with commentary as well. So I'm not going to flesh that out too much because I just basically did in my content that I would normally go over in class. So we will end this video here. There will not be a video for week 5 because there is not a quiz associated with that. Same thing with week 6. There is not a quiz. So the next video that I'm gonna do will be the last video. It'll be talking about event speaking and kind of wrap up for the course. You do have a final quiz that's cumulative. I'm not gonna go over it. You can re-review the videos, use the textbook. You can use the textbook while you're taking the quiz. Use Command F, search for things that are on the quiz. Make the quizzes easy. Do what you can to make them easy for yourself. All right.